Yo, what up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm RK Future, and today I'm going to be talking about Kanye's best and worst albums. We're going to be ranking Kanye's entire discography, and we're going to figure out which are the masterpiece, which are classics, which are great, which have some good moments, which are the hidden gems, and which are bad but with interesting sounds. Now, when I mean bad with interesting sounds, I mean that I think that every Kanye album has some pretty interesting sounds on them, and each time Kanye releases a project, he does take pretty bold risks musically. Some risks are bigger than others, but he does take risks, and I think that's one thing people like and admire about Kanye, now known as Ye, the artist, because he just challenges himself and pushes himself and does things even when it sounds not good. Like I remember I watched after Dark Fantasy it came out, Kanye did a performance at I think it was Coachella, and he sung a lot of the performance without auto tune, and his voice is not the best, and it cracked a lot. But he made it a statement in that performance to say like, I'm singing because that's what I felt, and I don't care if people make fun of me, right? I don't care if people write bad about me. So that sort of bold bravery is sort of admired to an extent. So here I'm going to be talking about his best and worst projects, starting with his earliest work all the way up into his latest work, and I'm going to talk about my reasons for each placement. This is just my opinion, as someone who has listened to a lot of Kanye's work and has gone to his live performance and has followed his work over the many years. I'd say I have a pretty good judgment on his discography, and I think I'll have some opinions in here that will be unique to myself and may even surprise you, some of my picks. So let's get right into it. So first and foremost, we got to start off with College Dropout. I would say this is probably a classic. This is an incredible album. I would dare to say it's probably best out of the first three albums. I didn't always feel like that though. I sometimes felt like Kanye was always getting better with his music. But I think in a way, when you compare Late Registration to College Dropout, I think College Dropout shines a bit more. Late Registration is an interesting album. I think John Bryan is like one of the producers on it, and I think he did the soundtrack for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, if you've seen that film. I think. I'm like 90% sure on that. But this album, Late Registration, is a lot more subdued, a lot slower, and a lot darker. Where this album is a little bit more, I would say, like courageous and more upbeat and more playful. I'm not a big fan of the skits on both these albums. They're funny at times, but there's so many skits between these two albums, and I don't know, it kind of breaks up the flow for me from a listening experience perspective. But I liked Late Registration for a long time because it had songs like Late, it had Drive Slow, it had crack music, it had Diamonds from Sierra Leone, and I thought that was just like better. But now that I come back and listen to this and I hear, tracks like Spaceships and Jesus Walks, like I kind of lean more towards College Dropout being a stronger album, and it has some great melodies and great choirs, and it's just an incredible album overall. So I lean more towards putting the first album over the second album, right? But these could change, right, depending on the vibe and what you're trying to go for. But I think this album, Late Registration, is a bit too slow in a lot of places. It does have Heard 'Em Say, I think, on the intro to this album, which is really great. So it just depends. I like to think this album kind of has a stronger start than this album, but overall, this album carries through a little bit better. It has Mos Def and Talib Kweli on it. It has Common on it. It has Last Call. Great album. Now, what's crazy about this album is at the end on Last Call, Kanye says that Talib Kweli was one of the greatest things that ever happened for his career. That's on record on the final song of this album. And then it's just so crazy to remember that Kanye dissed Talib Kweli, a couple years ago on Drink Champs, and was like, he didn't like the way he rapped. It's just a crazy turn of events that happened, and that he dissed Talib Kweli like that. But Talib Kweli is dope, and it's great to hear his voice on this record. I don't think he's on any other Kanye record, if I'm not mistaken. So those are the first two albums. I think they're both classics. Graduation. A lot of people say, but he made Graduation, and that this is his best album. But, I mean, I will say it's a classic, right? I will say, even in a way, if we're talking about culturally, this is probably more of a classic, right? If we're talking about, like, to the sound of hip hop and pop, this is like incredible. Like you have uh, Can't Tell Me Nothing on here. You have Stronger. This was a very interesting album. Like for that time period to be pushing, like I Wonder is like I think one of Kanye's best records ever. So this album has a soft place in my heart, and also I've played this record so many times, probably more than the other two records by a lot, because it's just like pop perfection in a way. It's really really good. Um, and you hear like the drunken hot girl song at the end, even like all the not all the lights, but flashing lights is incredible. But the drunken hot girl song is kind of like a foreshadowing of what's to come with like the dark sort of side of Ye's rapping. So this is a great album, though. Like sometimes I kind of skip over it now a little bit more. Like late registrate, like college dropout. At this point in my life, is an album that I'm more attracted to. I think sonically. Whereas this, I feel like there's a lot of cliches, and a lot of the lyrics are not that deep and not that interesting. They're not that vulnerable in a sense, right? Like you have the song like Everything I Am, which is good, but I don't know, something about this record makes me feel like the album is it's like giving the people what they want musically, and he's just kind of going through these sort of pseudo vulnerable moments, and it's not totally genuine here because at this point he really just wants to make very crisp records. But that's just my opinion. I think some days you could put Graduation at the top, but for today I think Late Registration deserves the top classic spot. You can probably guess what I'm going to be putting in Masterpiece and Great and some of that stuff. So the next album he dropped was 808s and Heartbreaks. This album, man, like this is a really good album, I think. Like I know a lot of people didn't like it because it's a lot of singing and stuff, but I think from a recording and production perspective, I think this is one of Kanye's most honest works. Like to hear the melodies that he does, to hear his voice singing in the way that it is, to hear songs like Coldest Winter. This is just an incredible record. Paranoid. I really like this record. I think the only thing I don't care for on this record that much is Heartless. I'm not a big fan of that track. And there's some other moments I think on the album drag, like Say You Will. You can't forget Say You Will. And of course, everyone credits 808s and Heartbreaks for being the album that shifted hip hop, that paved the way for the Drakes of the world, and the singing sort of sound and the electronic sound. And Kid Cudi's on this with Welcome to Heartbreak. This is just an incredible record and one of his most dramatic records. And I think, honestly, this is what Kanye was working towards the whole time, was to have this sort of pop, sonic, wide paintbrush strokes of an album where, of course, the other three albums are more structured, they're more linear, and this album is more just really expressive. And I love that album for this. And I love some of the 80s inspired sounds, and that he was inspired by Hall & Oates and Tears for Fears and that sort of era of music. Like, it's hard. Like sometimes I want to put this in Masterpiece, but I feel like there's like one song on here that maybe is a little off, and that might be the track Heartless, right? I know a lot of people like that track, but I don't know. It's not that crazy to me. So it fluctuates. Like I could definitely put this. This is a classic for sure. This is a classic, but sometimes I want to put it in Masterpiece. I really do, because it's just at that time period, what it did for music and what it was trying to do, and the shift that he took and the risk that he took and the production. I'm gonna have to put it in Masterpiece for now. Right? For now. Maybe by the end of this video I'll change my mind. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you're gonna put 808s over Graduation. Like this is what Kanye, I feel like, was really trying to be, and what he was really trying to do. So much so that once he did it, he wanted to move on, and he wanted to change. And I'm pretty sure he got a lot of pushback about this album. I'm gonna put this in. I'm gonna put this in classic for now. I'm gonna put this in classic. I'm gonna keep it right there in classic. I do think I enjoy this album overall more than Graduation, but it depends on the mood, right? Like if you want straightforward music that is just good, and like Good Morning is one of his greatest tracks ever, you're gonna put this up here, or maybe even above this album, right? But if you want to talk about like full body of work of epic and theater and drama, this is definitely going to be a better pick. This is a more dramatic, more theatrical album. You know, you got Say You Will with the long outro, and then you have, which is like instrumental outro, and you have Welcome to Heartbreak with Kid Cudi on the chorus. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that as far as drama. It's so epic and so dark and so just like ridiculously over the top, but still minimal in production. So this is a classic. Sorry, people might get mad. Let me know in the comments. Next video, or next album. What was next? He had to come back with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Now you know this is a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece. There's no skips on this album. The production is varied and textured, and it changes, and the ending is so epic. It's so raw and disturbing in a way. You know, I listened to the song, what's that song called? Runaway, which I did enjoy the movie, but the Runaway track, you know, I thought it was just like a playful, tongue-in-cheek sort of record, but in actuality, he's confessing a lot about his self-sabotage nature. And the outro on Runaway, I mean, the verse from Rick Ross, I mean, the verse from Pusha T, I mean, it just, like, I don't really have to say much. This really is a masterpiece. And I thought, you know, I didn't know what to think about this. Like, as time went on, you know, I felt differently about this discography. But when I won't go back and listen to this now, it still has aged beautifully. Kid Cudi on Gorgeous. Every feature is intentional. Every piece there is supposed to be there. You know, so yeah, masterpiece right here. Also, before we get too further ahead, I got to mention the gems, which are Late Orchestration and also VH1 Storytellers. I don't know about Late Orchestration, but the VH1 Storytellers came with a DVD, which you could watch, and I'm pretty sure the whole thing is not on YouTube, probably for copyright reasons, but VH1 Storytellers was like a moment. It's one of his best on stage recorded moments, and one of the few, right? Because like you can buy this and literally buy his performance on DVD, which I think is pretty rare. So this is a gem, and also he does stuff like he does Stronger, he does Touch the Sky, but this is during the 808s and Heartbreaks era, and the stage and the sound design and the backup singers and the backup string musicians and string arrangement is just like incredible. And then you have Late Orchestration, which is of course Late Registration, performed live on Abbey Road. These are both great albums, live albums. Next, after we have My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, we have, I think it was Watch the Throne. I think it could have been Yeezus first, but I'm pretty sure it was Watch the Throne. So let's say it was Watch the Throne, and I know Cruel Summer was after. So Watch the Throne is an interesting album. Is it a classic? Yes, culturally it is, right? Culturally it's a classic. Is it like great? Is it I don't think it's a masterpiece, but it's really good. It's really good. It's really, really good. Like, there are like, I think one skips, That's My B. I don't really like that song. I think that song was weak, but No Church in the Wild and stuff like that. I'm going to put this in great for now. I don't know. I'm going to put it in classic. I'm going to put this in classic. Yeah, I'm going to put this in classic. I'm going to say it goes about right here. It's not better than Graduation, but it is better than Late Orchestration. I think 808s is still like a better representation of the vibes, right? But this is great. Actually, it's tough, right? You could move these around, right? Let me know what you think, right? But I think Watch the Throne is great. Great sounds on here. Great epic music. You know, it's good. It's motivational. It's inspirational. Jay-Z has some great records on here. I think in a way it's kind of it just sounds very different. It's a very unique album because like you get a lot of braggadocious lyrics on this album. You get some raw emotions on this album, but it doesn't venture out too much musically, right? There's like a dubstep inspired record on here. There is a great samples on this record, but it doesn't evolve the music. Like Dark Fantasy was like a complete evolution and a complete kaleidoscope of music and emotion. And Watch the Throne doesn't really do that, and it's probably harder to do, when you're working with two great rappers and on the same album, whatever. But it serves its purpose, so I'd say this is good too. Um, Next we have Cruel Summer. I'd say this has some good moments. I say this has some good moments. This is, I think, probably uh oh, maybe the first album that of Kanye's that has skips on it, if you want to count it. That this is a compilation record, right? But what's crazy is that it has Don't Like, it has Click, it has Mercy, right? And I do believe that this was like Kanye at his peak. He had already done Dark Fantasy, he had already done Watch the Throne, and he was doing Cruel Summer, which was bringing the whole clique together. So he obviously was very motivated, and his sound, his drums, his pattern, his dark aura, all of that was encapsulated in his videos. He did the Cruel Summer film. He was really, this was his peak. This was his moment. He did the Cold Theraflu track, I Wish You Would with DJ Khaled. Like, this was the moment for Kanye. Now, the music on some of the records, the chemistry isn't all the way there, and it's just not a totally cohesive record. It doesn't really have a purpose or specific direction, and is definitely just a compilation of music. But there's some great songs and great moments. Kid Cudi has a great song on this album. So it has some good moments, for sure. But it's definitely, it's not a classic, and most people consider it as a kind of a poor album. But I think it's got some good songs. Like I said, Don't Like, Click, Mercy, and the song with the song Party with God. Hold up, I ain't trying to stunt, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. Went from most hated to the champion. God Flow, New God Flow is the track. Yeah, this has some incredible records. Incredible. If these were packaged any other way, those records, New God Flow, Click, Mercy, and Don't Like, if they had been packaged in some other way to really show how strong those records were, besides being in the mix of all the other Cruel Summer moments, they probably would, have even, they would be, praised even more as incredible records in that time. This is like, we're talking like 2012 era. And then we got Yeezus. This album, man, like, people hate on this album. People hate that I feel so strongly about this album. But I want to put this in a masterpiece. I used to put Yeezus as number one. I really did. But I have to admit that even though Yeezus is an incredible album, I think Blood on the Leaves goes on for too long. But that's the only thing. That's the only thing I could probably really say about this album. And Dark Fantasy has such a variety of textures and it's such a bold conclusion. I have to kind of give it to because, like, Lost in the World and Who's Gonna Survive in America takes this album to a whole new level of masterpiece. Probably, within in the next 50, 100 years, they'll probably still be exploring this album as a piece of American history. Whereas Yeezus is so much more polarizing and is so much more sort of like shocking and intended to be shock value, that it probably won't get that Smithsonian sort of masterpiece sort of recognition that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy has. But this is an incredible album. Like, people trip. Like, I'm in it, even though the lyrics are very vulgar, the production on that is a masterclass in sound design. By the way, I think this is probably Kanye's best mix and mastered album. It sounds pristine. This album is so intentional. Rick Rubin went crazy with the reduction on this album. This is probably my favorite Kanye album, honestly. And to see him perform this album live was insane. And the level that he was at this time was insane. So, yeah, I know a lot of people don't like this album, but, like, Black Skinheads, like, I'm in it, On Sight, Hold My Liquor, Send It Up, Bound. I mean, these are all, like, pure, pristine, pop, industrial, devastating records. And I can't think of any other hip-hop artist, solo hip-hop artist, who has made something on this level. Let me know if there is somebody on that level of just, like, pure New Slaves, pure, like, obsessive, insane, like, it's just insane. He's just staring at you in the face going insane with these super reduction, minimal beats with great 808s and sounds and all that. And, seeing him perform Blood on the Leaves live, it was like a shockwave over the audience. Like, this album is, I think, even underrated. It's so incredible. Shout out to Virgil Abloh on the cover. Rest in peace. Now, this album is Life of Pablo. I think this has got some good moments. This was the most disappointing album for me when it dropped, because I was thinking, like, first of all, when he dropped Dark Fantasy, I was like, how can he get much higher than Dark Fantasy? How can it go any higher than this? Like, this is like pristine, next level music. And he says that in the intro, can we get much higher? And then he dropped Yeezus and defined himself as a god. And I was like, he did it, right? But then this came out, and I was like, Life of Pablo, and it lost me in a lot of ways. Now, this album does have incredible sounds on it. The first track, Father Stretch My Hands, the Panda remix is great produced. Feedback has incredible production on it. And there's Wolves is one of his best records. So this has some great production on it, but it's too messy, too all over the place. There are quite a few skips on this album, and this is where he kind of embraces this sort of like, I know I'm crazy antic, where he's like, I miss the old Kanye. I don't care for it. It's not good in my opinion. And the album ends with Saint Pablo, which is pretty good, but this album went through a bunch of mixes and remixes. The release party for it was kind of a mess. This album it's got good moments, but it's not a classic, and it isn't incredible, and it isn't a masterpiece. Next album is, I believe, Yay. This has some good moments, but it's not great, right? Like, it's got some good sounds. Like, the intro is very interesting. Like, Thought About Killing You, the intro is like really different, and it's got some good vocals from like Party Next Door and Ty Dolla $ign. But it's very loose and confused, and it's just not a cohesive project. It's only 7 tracks too, and it's just like, this is the era, like Life of Pablo and Ye is like the era where Kanye was really just like rushing records out and not making them polished, and was really about like, I have a disorder, so I can just say how I really feel just to see how it feels. Like, he says that on the intro to the album, just say something out loud just to see how it feels. And he's got the song on this album where he's like, I put my hand on the stove just to see if I still bleed. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I think it's kind of a regression in a way from how great these other records were. And I think the reason why these records sound the way they do is because Kanye didn't want to just evolve into a great producer, a great executive. He still wanted to be a celebrity that was battling celebrity drama with his wife and kids and all this stuff, instead of just like evolving into a more distinguished pop artist. Because the logical thing after Yeezus was to make a great pop minimal record that didn't have shock value. That was just a great pop record, like Peter Gabriel's So, or like a Bjork record, right? Like, just making a great pop record that doesn't have to be like, I'm a god and I'm doing this to this girl and that girl. Like, it's just beauty. And instead he didn't go that way. He went to Life of Pablo, which is like this disturbing, which one you're going to choose. You're going to choose a family or the girl, and it has the terrible lyric about bleach on the first track. And then he evolves into like, now I'm crazy, right? This is a regression. This is definitely a regression. He was going up, like, if you think about it, he started with a great soulful record. He did a composition, composer style record where he's really getting into the sounds and the theatrics of it. And then he gets into Graduation, which is just a big pop stadium album. He gets into 808s, which is like super theatrical and dramatic, and his performance at the Hollywood Bowl proves that. It was like incredibly beautiful performance. And then you get into Dark Fantasy, which is still, once again, insane how he went from 808s to Dark Fantasy, which was like rap and hip hop and Dilla and Doom and still like, black philosophy and literature within it. Like, but still impersonal. Like, you didn't really get to know him that much, but you get to see his taste and his proclivities. Like, that was incredible. And then you get to, watch The Throne, which is like a celebration between two friends and rappers, Black Excellence, etc. Then you have Yeezus, which is like the pop destruction, the pop minimalist edge that sort of rewrites the game. And the next thing was to do a good, beautiful pop record. But he did not want to go that way. Instead, he goes to this like more crazy route, right? And I know he has mental health issues and stuff like that, but I'm just saying that's the reality. That's what happened. All right, next. So after Ye, I'm pretty sure after that, Jesus is King came out. And Jesus is King is one of my favorite Kanye records. People don't like it because it has the Chick-fil-A line, but that song is I think one of his best songs because the verses on there are incredible. And I love this album because he's actually standing up for something. So I'm not going to say that it is I don't know. Like, I can't put it in classic because I don't think that like the culture received it in the way that it should. But I think for me personally, it's great. I would almost put it in a master. I don't know if I would say it's a masterpiece because it still has those loose edges that this album Ye has, but it's great. It's a great album, right? And I love this album. One of my favorite albums. And like Hands On and We Are Water and I love this album because he's talking something beyond himself. It's one of the few moments in Kanye's career where he's extremely humble. And he doesn't overstay or overpreach like what his message is or what his relationship with God is. At the end, he just says, Jesus is Lord. I love this album. Love this album. This was such a refreshing album and gave me a very unique hope in him in his career. And the fact that he took it to Ye and brought it all the way back to this beautiful record about, about his understanding of God and the power that Jesus had in his life and how he made a mistake. He was living the wrong kind of way. This is a great album. I think we skipped over one. Kitsy Ghost. This came out around the same time that Ye came out. It came out a little later, I think. And this has some good moments as well. I'd put this probably above Ye. But Cruel Summer, like I said, it has those incredible records, so I can't put it above Cruel Summer. But this is pretty good. Good moments, but it's not perfect. When you go back and listen to it, it's not as tight as it needs to be. But this is a fun record, and I enjoyed it when it came out. Jesus is King, though, is great. It's great. It's great. It's great. I think classic, in my opinion, is more of a cultural thing. Whereas I think for some reason people dislike Jesus is King because it's so bold and because he's talking about God, and people feel the way about that. But this is great, And so in a way, just for the aesthetics, I'm gonna put this up here on masterpiece. But for the tier, I'm gonna keep it on great. Love Jesus is King though. And Jesus is Born, the choir album from Sunday Service, is also quite good. And the live performances from this, like with Hands On and stuff like that, were beautiful. And it brought Clips back for a great verse from No Malice, now known as Malice from Clips. This is a great record with Kenny G. No wasted features, nothing here is wasted. It's all there to serve God. I do believe that at that time, the heart was genuinely interested in that. But anyway, let's move on. The next album, Donda. This has got some good moments, some really good moments. Okay, so I'm going to put this above Life of Pablo for sure. I think this is better than Life of Pablo. It has one of Kanye's best songs come to life on it. It has a couple skips on the album though too, and a couple weird verses and weird lines. But this has beautiful records like Jonah and like I said, Come to Life and Up from the Ashes, I think is what the song was called. It got added later. I think maybe it's on the deluxe. This is a lot of beautiful music on it, and a lot of great epic records. The song with 5E, the song with Playboi Carti, the song with Baby Keem is on it as well. Like, this has some great production. It's like Jesus is King plus Yeezus. It's dark. But it's got some worship on there, praising of God on there too. But it's got some imperfections and some weird moments, but it's fun nonetheless. Okay, we'll technically say Donda 2 was next. This is bad with interesting sounds. It's got some good sounds on here, but we all know this is not finished. They kind of did a unofficial release for it on Spotify. It's kind of worse in a way. It's just not that good. It's a mess. I do like the songs that I've heard other people criticize, like that Fat Money wrote, like Security is a sick song. The other song, what's that song called? Too Easy. Uh, I like these songs, right? But overall, the project is not good. We'll just leave it there. Next was Vultures 1. This is not good. This is not a good album, right? It has some good sounds and it has some good moments. Like you got the Playboy Cardi track and Rich the Kid, but this is just not good. And King, I like King, the last song on the album, but there's a lot of skippable songs on this. A lot of moments where it's like, where are we going with this? Ty Dolla Sign's on it. Oh, and Vultures, the song Vultures is incredibly well produced, but it's just got a lot of junk on it, unfortunately. Of course, I wanted to like it, and I'm the type of person, like, when I hear a Kanye record that I don't like, there still will be moments of the album that I will replay because I like those certain moments. Vultures 2, I do think is better, and a lot of people don't agree. But let me pull up the track list really quick because this I can tell you why this is a better album. So Slide is pretty good. It is experimental with a great intro. Field Trip, I think is good. Fried, I think is good, even though people don't like it. 530, Dead is great. The Future and Lil Durk song. And but I mean, it's not great, right? The rest of the album is not great. River with Young Thug, and I just like the sound and the direction and the arc and sort of the way the album progresses a lot more than Vultures 1. I think Vultures 1 is really not good. Bully is also not good. But it's in a weird place. I definitely would. I can't put it above Vultures 2. Like, both those albums, I think all three of these, I think the three of these albums, they have some AI in it. But I think Bully is definitely mostly AI performances. They're written by real people, but they're voiced by other people, and they use Kanye's voice as like a mask over the other voices. It does still have some great moments. Like, there's a new song that was just added to this album called Damn, and then the first song, Preacher Man, those are great songs. Even if they are, spoken by someone else and written by someone else, they're great songs and great produced. And I wish, even if he was going to release an AI album, it was more cohesive and more in alignment with, like I said, Preacher Man and things like that. But I don't know if we'll ever get that. But otherwise, the album isn't very good. It's got some good sounds, good moments, but overall, nothing compared to these great albums. And then the last album, we'll just call it World War III or A Better World or whatever he decided to call it. This is bad. This is not good. Still has some interesting sounds on it. There is some very, like, eerie and beautiful records, but like he's talking about on this album, him being addicted to nitrous and how it's literally ruined his brain. And it's crazy to see that this is where Kanye has evolved to, and that this is where his career has come to. And we don't have to talk about all the controversy surrounding it, but it wasn't good. You have Dave Blunt's writing a lot of this record, or all of this record. You can listen to it online. It leaked. It's not good. It's just not good. It's not good. Still has some good sounds on it. Some little moments here where it's like, that's interesting. But this is not a good record. And it's unfortunate, like I had to admit, is me even being a big admirer of Kanye's work. It seems like his career is over. Like, I don't think we're going to get a, Life of Pablo to Jesus is King flip again. It could happen, right? We can't count anyone out. But it just, every artist has they run their course, right? Every artist has their era. They have their time. And who knows what's going to happen next. But it doesn't, this seems like this album, seems like it's the end of the road. That's why I was inspired to do this lineup and kind of talk about where these albums rank for me. I think this is fair. I know people want to put this album, Yeezus, a lot lower. I know people want to say 808s is bad. These are not bad albums. These are great records. They're intentional. I think Yeezus is one of his most honest records. Dark Fantasy is obviously his most conceptual. But these are all great albums. I think Late Registration might be one of his weaker albums, even though it is a classic with great songs on it. it's like Kanye's not on it as much. But the last song on this album, the last verse that Kanye spits, I think Gone, amazing. Amazing. So I think overall he has one of the greatest discographies ever. There's like some of these moments here that are kind of like but they still take bold risks and still push music forward, popular music forward. So that's my take. What do you think? Which album do you think needs to be a lot higher? Which album do you think needs to be a lot lower? Do you just agree with everything that I said? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. And we're probably going to do more tier lists. So if you want me to do more tier lists of other artists, please let me know what artists you'd like me to cover and what you think. Drop in a comment. Helps let me know like what you'd be interested in seeing, and definitely is encouragement. Even one comment is encouragement for me to do more, so just let me know. Anyway, peace. Shout out to everybody who watched. If you watched this far, make sure you subscribe. You know all the stuff you got to do. Peace.